Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today we're plunging into, well, a truly profound and foundational topic, the Upanishads. Our source material for this journey is Understanding Vedas, Chapter 5, Upanishads.pdf from Gurudeva Ashram, and our mission, basically, to quickly but thoroughly unpack the most important insights from these really ancient texts, uncovering their timeless wisdom for you. Now, to set the stage, our source offers this really good analogy. It says, if the Samhita, that's the foundational hymns of the Vedas, is likened to a tree, the Brahmanas, which detail rituals, are its flowers, and the Aranyakas, those are the forest treatises, sort of bridging ritual and philosophy, are its fruit, yet not ripened. The Upanishads are the ripe fruits. That really paints a picture, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It perfectly shows where they kind of fit within the whole Vedic tradition. The Upanishads are indeed the concluding part, chronologically appearing right at the end of the Vedic period. And they were also traditionally taught to pupils, right at the culmination of their studies, like a final, profound teaching. So if you look at the broader context, the Vedas are generally seen as having two main sections. There's the Karmakanda, focusing on actions, rituals. That's mostly the Samhitas and Brahmanas. And then there's the Jnanakanda, the part dealing with knowledge. The Upanishads primarily embody this knowledge aspect. They're part of the Shruti, meaning that which is heard, so revealed internal truths.
Yeah.
And interestingly, right now, they are probably the most popular and extensively read Vedic texts.
Right, and they often go by that very common name, Vedanta. So Vedanta, it sounds like more than just a label. It feels like it's saying something about their ultimate purpose. What does that really mean for them?
You're absolutely right. It's definitely more than just a name. Vedanta literally means the end of Veda or Vedasya Anta. Now, this signifies both a conclusion, chronologically speaking, and also critically, the ultimate goal or aim of the Vedas. The main reason they carry this name is because they represent that central purpose, the highest, the ultimate objective of all Vedic wisdom. They deal directly with moksha, that ultimate liberation or supreme spiritual freedom. So it's not just where the Veda ends, but what it's all ultimately aiming for.
Okay, that makes sense. So just as Vedanta points to their goal, the word Upanishad itself, that must tell us something about how this knowledge was shared, right? What's the story behind that word?
Yes, exactly. The word Upanishad comes from the root sad, S-A-D, which means to sit. Then you add two prefixes, upa, which means nearness, and ni, which signifies totality or devotion. So quite literally means sitting nearby devotedly. And this, of course, refers to that traditional practice of a pupil sitting very close to their teacher to receive instruction, intimate teaching. But what's really striking is how, over time, the word also picked up this deeper sense. It came to mean secret teaching or secret doctrine. You see terms like rahasya or guya, meaning mystery. The sources even mention instances where teachers might actually refuse to teach pupils who hadn't really proven their worthiness or sincerity. So this knowledge wasn't just, handed out. It was reserved for those who were truly ready for it.
Wow, so it wasn't just about sitting close physically, but about receiving this profound, almost secret knowledge in that dedicated setting. And you're saying the word itself can mean the knowledge or even the book that holds the knowledge.
Precisely. It covers the act, the knowledge, and the text itself.
Okay, so with such profound, maybe even guarded knowledge, the next question is, how many of these texts are there? It sounds like the number itself might be a bit complicated.
That's a very good point. Yes, the exact count has definitely been a subject of, well, considerable discussion. Traditionally, the older Upanishads were often actually found embedded within the Brahmanas and the Aranyakas, part of those larger texts. And there's even that unique case you mentioned earlier, the Ishavasya Upanishad. It's actually part of a Samhita, the Vajrayana Samhita, forming its 40th book. Quite unusual. Later on, they certainly gained more independence as standalone texts, though they always sort of professed allegiance back to one of the four Vedas. The challenge in counting them really arose because, well, founders of various religious sects sometimes wrote their own books and called them Upanishads too. And this has led some scholars to estimate the total number could be as high as, say, 200.
200. But is there a more, let's say, traditionally accepted number?
There is. The most widely accepted figure comes from a text called the Muktakopanishad. It enumerates 108 Upanishads specifically.
108.
Okay, exactly. And among these 108, 10 are generally considered the most important, particularly from the viewpoint of Vedantic philosophy. These are known as the Dashopanishad. That's Isha, Kina, Katha, Prashna, Munda, Mandukya, Taittiriya, Aitareya, Chandogya, and Brihadaranyaka. And then often listed among the older principal ones, you'll also find Shvetashvatara, Kaushitaki, and Maitrayana. So that brings the total of what we usually consider the really key principal Upanishads to 13.
13 main ones out of the 108.
Correct. And the Luttika Upanishad also gives us a breakdown of how those 108 are distributed among the 4 Vedas. It seems the Krishna Yajurveda and the Atharvaveda were particularly fertile ground, contributing the largest numbers, 32 and 31 respectively.
That's interesting. And for those 13 principal ones, can we see how they map onto the Vedas?
You can, yes.
So from the Rigveda, we have
the Atharvaveda Upanishad and the Kaushitaki Upanishad.
Okay. And Shukla Yajurveda.
That gives us the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad and the Isha Upanishad.
Then the Krishna Yajurveda. Quite a few there, right?
Yes. The Taittiriya, Katha, Shvatashvatara, and Maitrayana Upanishads are all linked to the Krishna Yajurveda.
Got it. Samaveda.
That's the Chandogya Upanishad and the Kena Upanishad.
And finally, the Atharvaveda.
From the Atharvaveda, we get the Mundaka Upanishad, the Mandukya Upanishad, and the Prashna Upanishad.
It really shows this philosophical current was running through all the major Vedic traditions, doesn't it?
It certainly does. It wasn't confined to just one school of thought.
All right, so we've got their place as ripe fruit, the meaning of their name, this idea of secrecy, the numbers. Let's get into the heart of it now. What are the deep philosophical questions they're really tackling?
Yes, this is where they truly shine. They represent that last phase of Vedic revelation. And their primary focus is on Brahma Vidya, which means the knowledge of Brahman, the ultimate reality. They grapple with these incredibly profound, fundamental questions. Questions that, frankly, still resonate today, like, what is this world? Who am I really? What happens after death? But the Upanishads aren't just asking. They're offering a pretty radical answer. They propose that the true self, the Atman, is actually identical with the ultimate reality of the universe, Brahman, which implies that liberation, moksha, isn't about doing something specific, but about realizing something incredibly profound about your own nature. It's a shift in understanding.
A shift in perspective, fundamentally.
Exactly. And their essential theme really revolves around the nature of the world and, well, God, or the ultimate principle. You know, while the earlier Rigveda hymns already hinted at moving from many gods towards the one infinite, there's that famous line, Ekam sad vipra bahuta vadanti, truth is one, the wise speak of it in many ways. Well, this idea becomes much more pronounced, much more central, and very well illustrated throughout the Upanishads. So the doctrine of true knowledge and salvation through that knowledge become the major subjects. They really mark the culmination of those earlier Vedic investigations into what ultimate reality truly is.
So it sounds like they're weaving together these deep, maybe even verifiable spiritual insights with existing traditions, legends, maybe even cosmological ideas about how the universe works.
That's a good way to put it. Yes, there's a blend. Brahman and his creation are definitely discussed too. And while most Upanishads cover similar ground, subject-wise, each one often brings its own unique idea, or ideas, maybe its own specific method of inquiry. It's also really important to note that their overall spirit is quite anti-ritualistic. That marks a significant shift from the earlier Vedic focus on elaborate ceremonies.
Less focus on the doing, more on the knowing or being.
Precisely. The emphasis shifts towards inner realization.
So, given all this depth and this shift, why are they considered so incredibly important? What's their lasting impact?
Well, they hold a truly unique and central place in the whole history of Indian philosophical thought. They essentially serve as the highest authority, the foundational source, for many, if not most, of the philosophical systems that developed later in India. Obviously, Vedanta philosophy is directly based on them, but even other schools like Sankhya, Vaisheshika, Nyaya, Yoga, their philosophers often look to the Upanishads to find, some basis or warranty for their own tenets. They really complete the whole spectrum of Vedic knowledge. And generally, the Upanishads speak of the earlier Vedas and the importance of their study with respect. Certain Vedic verses, like the famous Gayatri mantra, are even used as subjects for meditation within the Upanishads themselves.
And you mentioned Brahma Vidya, the knowledge of Brahman being key. It sounds like that's the central theme, the great kingdom, as the source puts it. Knowledge is paramount.
Absolutely paramount. Knowledge alone is given the highest importance. And this brings up a fascinating aspect. Who could be a teacher, a guru, in this Upanishadic context? It wasn't about your birth or social standing. The source gives some really compelling examples. Think about the story of Satyakama Jabala for the Chandogya Upanishad. He was accepted for spiritual initiation, even though he honestly admitted he didn't know his father's name or lineage. His truthfulness was his qualification.
That's remarkable for an ancient text.
It really is. Or consider Rigveda, who was recognized as a Brahmana purely because of his knowledge, not his birth, and he ended up instructing King Janashruti. Then there's King Pravahana instructing the Brahmana Gautama about the doctrine of transmigration, a king teaching a priest, and King Ashwapati Kaikeya teaching 5 learned Brahmanas about the nature of Atman, the self. These stories powerfully underline the Upanishadic view. It's the person with knowledge who matters most, not their social label. It's incredibly progressive, really.
That focus on inner worth, on wisdom over status, is truly profound. And speaking of profound ideas, the source also mentions 4 powerful Mahavakyas, great sayings, each linked to one of the Vedas.
Yes, the Mahavakyas, these are incredibly significant. They are concise, powerful statements that directly spell out the core Upanishadic realization, the non-duality, the essential oneness of the jiva, the individual soul, and Brahman, the ultimate reality. These aren't just abstract philosophical points. They are meant as pointers towards direct experience. They challenge our ordinary perception of being separate individuals.
Like a formula for realization.
In a way, yes. They invite you to recognize that the ultimate reality isn't out there somewhere, but is, in fact, the very nature of your own consciousness.
Yeah.
Think about the shift involved in deeply understanding I am Brahman. It's not arrogance, it's recognizing this fundamental unity.
So what are these 4 sayings?
Okay, so from the Rigveda, we have Prajnanam Brahma, meaning consciousness is Brahman. From the Yajurveda, Aham Brahmasmi, which means I am Brahman. From the Samaveda, Tatvamasi, meaning that art thou or you are that.
And from the Atharvaveda, Aham Brahm Brahma, meaning this self, Atman, is Brahman.
Prajnanam Brahmasmi, Tatvamasi, Ayamatma Brahma. Wow.
Powerful stuff, right? And it really highlights why understanding the Upanishads is so crucial. As the source says, without understanding them, it's pretty much impossible to get a real insight into Indian history and culture, because almost every significant later development in Indian philosophy and religion has drawn heavily from these texts. They are foundational.
So we've journeyed quite a way today. We've seen the Upanishads as the ripe fruit of Vedic thought, explored the secrets sitting behind their name, touched on their numbers, and really dived into their core quest for ultimate reality, for Brahman. And this emphasis on knowledge above everything else and their lasting impact, it's just immense. It really is. And looking at the big picture, it just underscores this timeless human quest, doesn't it? The search for ultimate reality, for the nature of knowledge itself, that move beyond just ritual towards deeper inner understanding. It's a journey that continues. The Upanishads are such a powerful expression of that search.
So here's something to leave you with, building on all this. Considering how these ancient texts clearly prioritize knowledge and wisdom over any kind of external identity or social standing, what does that really tell us about the truly enduring values in human inquiry, even thousands of years later? Maybe think about how these profound questions about who we are, the nature of the world, ultimate reality, how they continue to resonate today, how they keep informing our own thinking, regardless of the specific traditions we might follow. Something to ponder.